Hi, I'm Andy Jacobs with Accurex.
I'm Brett Kroening from Boelter. Today we're going to talk a little bit about customer service and traffic flow.
So Brett, talking a little bit about traffic flow, how do you plan for the rush? You know, when we're thinking about maybe a stadium or arena versus a restaurant, I know it's different in each way, right?
Sure, absolutely. Right, we want to think about having food product ready. So in a stadium or arena event, we have situations where those patrons are going to come all at one time during a break in the game, break in the action. Not so much are they going to come steady throughout the whole event. Whereas in a restaurant or other setting, school, what have you, we know pretty much exactly when those patrons are going to come to that event, and we can prepare a little bit more accurately. Also, the throughput and the rush, typically there's a set amount of time available in certain venues where, you know, like we said, schools or restaurants, where individuals are going to come through the line, collect their food, and then sit down. They've got a fixed amount of time to eat that product. Whereas in a stadium or something of this nature, we need to rush those fans through and get them back to their seat, because you never know when the action might begin again, right? So some of the things that we might do and design to help with that is, one, have a fair amount of product on hand. Beverages are important in a stadium or arena event, but also in school food service or in hospital settings, university settings. Beverages are important, but probably not quite as important as getting them through the various different meal options.
Yeah.
Probably a lot more choice in a lot of those instances as opposed to in a stadium or an arena where we're going to have more limited choices. Additionally, we want to have that food hot and ready, and we want to make sure that it looks like it's been made fresh. We really don't want to have that perception that it's been sitting there wrapped up for a long period of time.
Right.
So in some instances, we may try to show display cooking happening near that station, to where we see those products being finished and prepped, packed, and that way, possibly even if those items were packed a little bit in advance, it appears that they're all fresh and they're all being packed right now.
Right.
In the off times, certainly in an arena or a stadium, there's time in between where you might still get some traffic, and you may not have to have those warmers filled at that time. You may be able to make some of those items to order. So we want to try to have that set up to where there's both of those options, where we can have things ready, hot and packed, and then we can also have some things where it's prep available. But again, back to the beginning of that, is really just having the food and product on hand and ready. So pre-prep, loading into a warming cabinet or something that's going to help hold those proteins or what have you that are robust and can hold up. And then also sort of getting through the production and prep and service or to service for those other items that we maybe don't want to hold very long. But having that product available is key. Both on the beverage side and on the food side.
Yeah, so obviously we want to plan for those high traffic times, right? Getting people in is going to be high output, packaging them up, getting them through the lines, right? You want to get them in and out pretty quick, right?
Correct.
So what are some different safety considerations to think about for both the people and the food aspect of things?
Sure, right. So a lot of times, we would use typical sneeze guards in boats, to where we'd load the product up open behind a sneeze guard in a boat. That has sort of started to fade, and I feel like individuals are more interested in a closed container now, generally a wrapped product or a boated product with a clamshell lid. We certainly would like to try to have, our clients generally speaking would like to try to merchandise those pieces or those items in a clear container, to where you can see the product and it's not smashed or wrapped up tight. But that's not always possible if you've got a venue where you just don't have a lot of space to retail all those items, and you need to sort of maximize the number of items, units that you can get into the warmer. So again, not always an option, but we certainly would like to see those things containerized, but yet not sort of spashed in and packed. Additionally, as it kind of relates to the people queuing up, we certainly want to have enough space between the various pickup points on a beverage line or at a beverage cooler, open air display cooler or something like that. Certainly want to have enough merchandising space available that individuals can space out a little bit and still get up to that, but not feel like they're crowding someone or not have to get terribly close to another individual to grab something. You'll see that sometimes in convenience stores and things, where things are sort of closely packed and they're really going for maximum output out of minimum square footage. And that is what you have to do in those instances where you're just trying to merchandise a ton of things.
Right.
But I think in certain avenues with certain operators, we've seen more of a turn to not quite as much diversity of product, but potentially a little bit more volume of each of those products that they've chosen.
Okay.
Potentially like at the end of a service line where you've got an open air display, sandwich prep area or something where you're going along the line in a quick serve, and then there's a display of various beverages. Stay away from maybe you don't want to have a fountain drink, but you can grab something out of that display. So if we can elongate or lengthen that display, we certainly would try to do so. There's more cost to that, right, because the equipment costs more. But certainly giving them a little bit more space to pick from is ideal.
Yeah. Yeah, and I'd imagine that, when you're kind of thinking about some of the safety considerations around the people aspect of it too, different things like, comfort is going to come into play, right? From just, if they're traveling through the line, if they're going to be dining in, and then, some of the different things around, maybe bringing extra fresh air in just for, different safety considerations in times of need, right?
Yeah, definitely. If we can turn over that air, make more air exchanges in the space, that we're inviting a lot of individuals into. It makes a lot of sense, right?
Yeah.
Certainly something that Accurex can handle with the various air handling programs that are available. Right?
Yeah, absolutely. So just like with our dedicated outside air systems, those units are able to really bring in some more of that additional fresh air, fully temper it, whether it's from a heat, cooling, humidity control, but by and large, especially during different times where there might be some different world health
concerns out
there.
Right?
Yeah, absolutely. That's one of the things is bringing in additional fresh air for the amount of people that's in the space can really help to mitigate some of the different risks of anything.
Yeah.
And then I think actually obviously in the kitchen area too, having some additional
air exchanges
in there for just whether it's the comfort and the safety of the staff too.
No question, right? I mean, who wants to be back on the grill line with that hot air dumping in on them and really stagnant, no air exchanges as compared to some of the new spaces that we've done together and designed where you've got a ton of air turnover, not necessarily drafting air across the food, cooling it, but certainly focusing on putting air in where it belongs and taking it out, of course, on the hood line.
Yeah.
And that's something we've seen a lot of is trying to do that where we're pushing air into the serving space where fans or where patrons are located, and then also having separate air diffusing happening at the hood line. So we're not pushing that air across the service line and necessarily drafting all the heat out of the holding cabinets and things, right, when you've got a pass window or something of that nature. But rather putting air in the back, putting air in the front, and keeping those two zones balanced so we're not getting that air transfer.
Yeah.
Also keeps the food odors and food vapor from kind of traveling out into the area where the fans are.
And it seems like it's a good place too for some more of that demand control ventilation actually at the hoods too, right? Because then you're going to be able to, especially in the high traffic times, it's going to be able to ramp up with that need, with that demand. Like you said before, there's times where it's just output after output after output, and
quick service restaurant
at different times, then it's gonna, but then it falls off, right? So being able to pull into those efficiencies and not exhausting, not bringing additional air in when you don't need to.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, all these quick serve restaurants that are being more and more prevalent over the typical fast food restaurant. Those operations certainly need that ability to ramp up and ramp down as their demand increases from a customer standpoint, right?
Yeah.
And then, of course, those customers still want, in a quick serve restaurant, still want that quality of air to where they're not, they don't feel like they're going into something where it's, dirty and the air is kind of sticky and you can sense all that, all the grease-laden vapor in the air. So, yeah, totally agree with that.
Yeah, absolutely. So what are some different, as the world evolves, we keep looking at, what can we do to keep everyone safe, right? To help to mitigate any potential risk of any sort of health concern with anyone. So what are some different design changes that you've seen and you look at in designing some of the different safety protocols? Yeah,
some of the things are contact surfaces, right? I mean, just trying to help individuals not have to contact as many surfaces as other individuals just have. So there had been a push to try to get more doors, glass doors and display doors on refrigeration from an energy standpoint, right? Because open airs are not quite as efficient as a closed case would be. But as we rethink that, with the fact that we don't necessarily want everyone touching those contact surfaces together. We've gone back to more of that open air being a driver, and we're trying to see, trying to push more of that into the marketplace, to where when you're walking up and approaching something and you see something you want, you can just simply reach in and grab it, and you're grabbing your container, not necessarily having to move other containers or grab a handle or what have you. The same thing on the hot food side. Maybe where we would typically or traditionally have had utensils, serving items, tongs, et cetera, out, and individuals would potentially serve their own items onto their tray or plate. We're seeing a situation where we want to be able to have someone, a food culinarian in the back space, sort of loading that product onto a dish, tray, or plate, and then passing that over or around a sneeze protector, so that, again, that food is cut off. There's no additional contact surfaces present there. That also kind of lends to larger spaces, larger servery spaces, to where we have the ability to have individuals more spaced out as they're flowing towards the line. It certainly makes for long queuing lines, so the dining room situations are sort of, certainly having to be rethought to some.
Yeah.
But all things that play in reasonably simply. I mean, we haven't necessarily seen anything completely negated, where we're not doing certain things at all. There's still a place for most anything. I mean, glass door refrigerators still exist. There's certainly going to still be a call potentially for salad bars that are self-service in the future. So we don't want to wash anything out. But in the short run, if we're making up salads and containerized items, maybe those are being done by a culinarian instead of by the individual that's purchasing those items.
Yeah, so it's something that just needs to be pretty fluid, right? Especially when you look at maybe different places like schools and different institutions where you're used to seeing a lot of self-serve, and like you said, a lot of open air self-serve things instead of prepackaged.
Yeah. So the containerized thing, right? You're just going to see a lot more of those things pre-made, containerized, closed container. And if they are open, they're being served, and then there's probably potentially a lid being applied to them.
Yeah.
So a lot more of that disposable product and containerized items that we're seeing being needed in the marketplace.
Yeah. So what do you look at? What do you think about when you're looking at high traffic, low traffic, and potential energy savings that can happen throughout that?
Oh yeah, right. Where you have the hills and valleys of service, right? And sometimes we have huge rushes and we need to ramp up because we're going full on, and then in other instances we should be ramping down. And so, also with that is the sort of that human load on the building, right? We've got a lot of people in and out. We've got doors potentially propped open.
Yeah.
There's a lot of that plays to the busy times versus not so busy times. And that's where things like demand control for the whole building, the ability to ramp up and ramp down, are sort of critical. And I think more critical in a restaurant setting than in most, not necessarily only restaurants, but food venues.
Yeah.
Maybe more than in what we would see in regular retail outlets or other sorts of businesses. So it's good that there are partners that like Accurex that are willing to supply those details, those component parts that are driven by food service, not just an air handler that you'd normally use in a typical department store or something.
Absolutely.
But rather something that's specific to the kinds of ups and downs and service that you're going to see in a restaurant, right?
Yeah.
And it plays into all that, right? It plays into that human load, and then also as there's that human load, you're certainly firing up more equipment and throwing off more heat. Refrigeration is being used, doors are opening and closing, so we're rejecting more heat from those units. So it becomes very important to be able to manage that building along with that.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's something that, like you had said, Accurex does have the demand control ventilation that has a very high turn down. So it's a 50% turn down. So in those valleys, that the system can be running at 50%, and that's both on exhaust side and a makeup air side. So if it's a standard makeup air unit with heat in the middle of the winter in Wisconsin, you're still gonna get heat output at that 50% turn down rate of that unit. But then, like you said, hey, we have a peak. We'll ramp up to 100% and perform just as well.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. But yeah, that's what we would see where we would see the most impact. I think would be that ventilation component.
Yeah.
Versus the refrigeration and other things. I mean, they certainly are using more energy when we're pushing hard, right? We're using a little bit more gas. But all those appliances are ready to take that load on. It's just a matter of what they're rejecting and what we're doing with that rejected material.
Absolutely.
Vapor, et cetera.
Yeah, yeah. So when you think of the traffic planning, right? So your traffic flow, how do you plan for large spaces versus small spaces?
Oh yeah, sure. So it's always easier when there's more room, right?
Yeah.
But it really
was the case.
where we have to get really creative is when we have spaces that are smaller. Potentially, there's another thing is when they're a sort of an odd shape. Maybe they're very long and slim, or very wide and shallow. Those have a whole different set of challenges, right? So really, what we need to do is just think about that with the owner or operator, and think about what has to be in those spaces, and really focus on the things that are necessary. And in some instances, when things don't fit, we have to choose what isn't going to fit, right? Potentially, there's a portion of the venue that's not necessary. Maybe we wanted to do some chip display, but we're not going to do that because there's not enough room. And we can do some things with wall hung or something of that nature, right? Potentially, we just have to have more service window. So we may need to sort of eat into some of the queuing space and find a way to queue individuals in a different way. In a school or a setting of that nature, maybe we're lining them up in portions of the cafeteria, where they're queuing in that nature. Especially as we're starting to space out queuing a little bit more, right? We're not stacking people quite as close. So it's usually a sort of a trade-off between the space that we're in and an additional space. And in some cases, that's outside. You have to think about that, especially when we live where we live. But if individuals need to queue outside, or there needs to be enough space for food service operations as well as for the seating or dining, there's a limitation. So in some of those instances, maybe there's some patio heaters or some sort of awnings or something that we're doing to try to give them a place to warm as they wait. And that, for venues, that's typically a good problem to have. If people are that interested in coming and they're packed, that's probably good. And it's just a matter of spending a little bit of money to figure out how to sort of encapsulate or grab a little bit more space. Sometimes there's nothing you can do, right? And in some instances, there's nowhere outside because there's a road right there. There's maybe a small sidewalk, but not enough room to really do much more. So then it becomes a discussion about, is this where we should really be doing this upgrade, or is this where we should really be, is this where the restaurant should be, or is this where the food venue should be? So those are tough. But certainly when there's large volumes of space, it's reasonably simple, right? It's just a matter of allocating space to the different areas and thinking about it openly.
Yeah. So it sounds like it's a lot about drawing upon your own experiences, drawing upon your partners, and then ultimately with the owner operators, right?
And just really having that sort of good open dialogue with the owner about what we're dealing with and how we're going to deal with it, right?
Absolutely.
Because we go there together. Everything is a team. So.
Right, absolutely. Well, thank you, Brett, for meeting with me today on the different traffic flow, safety protocols, and some of the different design aspects that you think about during this. Thank you for watching. We would love to continue the conversation with you on your specific needs. You can find your local Accurex representative or reach out to us directly at accurex.com or call 1-800-333-1400.